Hello and welcome into Brewcast for Amazing Brew on the SB Nation Podcast Network. Here with you on Monday night, October 3rd, as we head into Tuesday, October 4th. Already 5 weeks done in the college football regular season, and things going very well for the Wolverines here so far. Great road win over the weekend, which we're going to talk all about here tonight. Luke Ghiardi and Scotty White with you, and coming to you live on the Amazing Brew YouTube page. If you're joining us here on the YouTube page, appreciate you for hanging out. And you can always leave your comments as well. Join the conversation. We love to hear from you. And already got a big go blue to begin the show. Scotty White, what is happening, my man? How you doing here tonight?
I'm doing great, man. Feels good to be 5-0 and going into Kinnick and being a top 5 team that survives. Can't complain after a relatively stress-free win at Kinnick. Obviously, there was a little bit of stress that happened there in the beginning of the fourth quarter, but otherwise it's a really solid showing for Michigan on the road. But yeah, dude, it's crazy that we are through 5 weeks of this season already, and we're going to be halfway through the regular season after this game concludes here in 5 days against Indiana. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I'll say my heart was pumping a little more than I thought it was going to in that fourth quarter, man.
Yeah.
It was got a little dicey for a second. I was like, the weird is starting to happen in Kinnick, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, definitely. Like going into the fourth quarter, Iowa was driving, but I was like, there's simply Iowa can't score 20 points in a game. There's no way they're going to put it up in one quarter, but it was a little scary. It was a little scary when they were driving to potentially make it 2014.
Yeah, it certainly was. But other than that, Michigan felt like they dominated this football game and
Yeah.
first win at Kinnick since 2005, and it all started with that opening possession. Michigan marched right down the field, and it was precision, man. It was an absolutely surgical drive to set the tone to begin that game.
It was, dude. I was extremely impressed, especially, dude, like that's JJ's first drive as a starter in a hostile environment, and it was loud. Like Kinnick's rocking to start the game, and it was really impressive how not only the team started the first half. I mean, they go down, they get a touchdown, defense comes out immediately, gets a 3-and-out,
Yep.
and then to start the second half, a 3-and-out with the drive for Iowa went -1 yards, and then the offense comes out and leads another touchdown drive. So I mean, that's huge starting both halves. And especially like we talked about last week, to come away with touchdowns. There are a couple drives that left some field goals out there, but really getting command and getting momentum going to begin both halves was so big for Michigan in that game.
Oh, monstrous, man.
Yeah.
And that it was a beautiful thing to watch, like you said. We knew, I think, that they were going to settle for a couple of field goals in this game because Iowa's defense really is that good, and that's what made that opening drive so important. And the first thing that you saw was that offensive line getting incredible push on that opening drive. I mean, it was a beautiful sight to see. It feels like that unit really starting to come together here.
Yeah, they were. I mean, Blake is an absolute dog, but I mean, he wouldn't be able to do what he does without such a good offensive line, and just that mix of all that talent at the running back position and the offensive line is a thing of beauty for Michigan right now. And I mean, that's a huge reason that we've got a Heisman campaign going for Blake Corum right now. I mean, he's one of the best in college football. I think he's got 5th or 6th best odds to win the Heisman right now.
Well, you take a look at it, and this was, really the game on a couple of fronts, right? There were a couple of things we were wondering. We'll get to JJ and his performance here in a second, but I look back at, what Michigan was able to do on the ground. They ran it 42 times for 172 yards on Saturday. That's 4.1 yards a clip. That is far and away the most Iowa's given up on a yards per carry basis here this year. The next closest was the game against Iowa State, and the Cyclones averaged 3.1 yards a carry. Rutgers averaged 2.5, Nevada 1.9, South Dakota State 1.1 yards per carry. That is a legit run defense that Iowa has, particularly at home, feeding off the crowd, and Michigan was able to dominate the trenches.
Yeah, and then the last couple games against Maryland too, it was the ground game that really got Michigan going. And it seems like that's been the lead. We talked a lot in the offseason about which way is Michigan going to go with all the quarterback talent, the wide receiver talent, the running back talent. So far, it seemed like a lean to the run game. But it'll be interesting to see the next few weeks because I think Indiana, Penn State, and Michigan State all have some very low-ranking passing defenses. So it'll
Yes.
be interesting to see which direction Michigan goes with the play calling the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think it is going to be time. Well, but the other thing is too, right? Is that God, are they're dominant up front,
Right,
and
right.
you've got a guy like Blake Corum, and now Donovan Edwards coming back. You'd be able to spell him a couple of times in that Iowa
Yeah,
game. I think was massive down the stretch. But it's really hard to go away from that. But if there's, I'm thinking to Penn State, and obviously, we don't like to look ahead, but Michigan is 21-point favorites against Indiana. I know it's on
yeah,
the road, and Indiana's played some decent games here this year. But regardless of what Michigan does in that game, whether they run the football, whether they throw the football, they should be able to take down the Hoosiers
yeah,
probably relatively easy, I would say. That's my thoughts on it right now. But when you think about the Penn State game, you're going to have to throw to be able to beat that team.
yeah.
And do you start to incorporate some more things here this week in preparation for that game? That's going to be the thing to watch out for.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's kind of the way to go. Penn State has they've surprised me a little bit this year. That's going to be a tough game. And yeah, I mean it's really hard to not look ahead to that. Top 10 showdown in the Big House, and you're playing a team that just lost by 2 touchdowns to Nebraska this week. So it'll be hard for the team to keep their focus truly. But yeah, I think that really is the way to go. I mean, I think that Iowa defense was a huge test for the offense and
Yeah.
a really good thing that they needed. Definitely the best defense they faced this year. But yeah, I think that it's definitely something to get ready for. Obviously, you don't want to treat a game like it's getting ready for the next game. You have to treat every opponent seriously. You don't want to come out sleepwalking. But it's definitely something to think about going into this one.
And ultimately, JJ did exactly what he needed to do at
Definitely, yeah,
Iowa here on Saturday, man. Because we knew, JJ sometimes, he likes to hero it up a little bit, and we've seen him turn the ball over. He did nothing of the sort, nothing even close to that. I feel like here this
yeah,
week, and it was really awesome to see. 18 to 24, 155 yards and a touchdown, no turnovers. I don't even know if he had any turnover worthy plays on Saturday. That is exactly the type of game that we really needed to see from JJ, because we
yeah,
know what the ceiling is with him, but we kind of wanted to see the floor as well when he goes up against a good defense, right? And I think we were
right,
able to see that. Like, yeah, he can be the game, sort of manager, not turn the ball over like we saw from Cade McNamara last year that ultimately allowed Michigan to win the Big Ten championship. We didn't know if that was the case with JJ. Could he have that floor against a really good defense, and particularly, against that 2 safety shell that, started to become really popular that Iowa's played for years and years. And they turn you over. They're opportunistic. That's the way that they beat you. Could he play a game like he did Saturday? And obviously the answer is yes, which gives me a lot of confidence moving forward, because I think over the next 3 games, if they want to, they'll be able to attack these secondaries.
yeah, yeah. I was impressed with JJ. I was really nervous going into that game about the turnovers because that's how Iowa beats you. And I think there was one play. Yeah, he was getting hit and the ball it went backwards, so it was like a throw, not really a fumble, but it was a backwards throw. That was really the only one. It was a nice play by Donovan Edwards to get down on that.
Yep.
But yeah, I was really impressed. And also he scrambled, JJ scrambled, and he could have kept going. And he decided to go out of bounds after getting the first down.
Yep.
That's maturity, that's growth right there. That was good to see. Don't want him putting himself in harm's way. But yeah, I was really impressed with JJ. And just, I mean, you can see it in his completion percentage of the year. I mean, it's like
Oh
70
my
to
God.
80%.
Yeah.
Like it's insane. Like he's making some really good throws. He had a really nice throw to Andrell Anthony, I think was the one that I was most impressed with this
Oh
week.
man, he hit the turkey hole on that one,
That was
dude. That
beautiful.
was impressive.
It was. It reminded me of his throw against Ohio State last year. It was just, he had a couple defenders on both sides fit it
Yep.
right into that window. It was really pretty. He did miss another deep ball, which is just like really surprising to
Man,
see after
I
the
feel
deep ball
like, yeah,
episode he's
he's
had.
close, and dude,
Yeah,
I feel like that was his biggest like attribute last year, was his
exactly. Yeah,
ability to just drop a deep ball in the arm. So I'm not really sure what's happening here.
right.
I mean, it almost feels like regression, and you start to worry if it's like being coached that way, lead them a little more to prevent any turnover worthy plays or anything like that. Like if you're
Yeah.
going to miss long, but ultimately his ability, at least last year, we saw in multiple deep throws it was to be able to just drop it right in the bucket.
Yeah.
He needs to be able to find that, because those are the type of shots they're going to need to hit, over
Right.
the second half of the season.
Right. I mean, a couple of against Maryland, those are the difference between maybe a
Yeah.
blowout in that one. And in this Iowa game, I mean, in these big games, those are just huge momentum shifters and really gets your team going in the right direction. And yeah, I mean, it's just weird to see him miss them after really I can't even think of before the Maryland game a time where I saw him miss a deep ball. I'm sure there was one, but I can't think of any.
Right.
And I mean, he's got to have some nerves too that could be contributing. I mean, think of the expectations from this fan base for him. It's definitely got to be difficult to play under that kind of pressure. But it's certainly something that I expect him to get better at and start making those throws, because we know he's more than capable of doing it.
Yeah, he is for sure. And that's get it calibrated back to 100. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah. He's 110%.
I am a little bit worried though. Roman Wilson, left the game, didn't return, and Jim Harbaugh didn't have any
Yeah,
update on his status here today.
yeah. That is a little concerning. And yeah, it's just so hard to know what's going on with the injured players with Harbaugh. It's usually you get he's
Yeah.
working through something or very minimal updates. But yeah, I mean, certainly wishing the best for him. I mean, he was at the beginning of the season looking like he's going to be one of the top receivers of the year. So hopefully we can get him back out there soon.
Yeah, he's got some wheels, man.
He does. He
But
does.
definitely good to see Andra, like you mentioned, get involved a little bit too, right? Like it looked like they tried a little bit in the Maryland game, just starting to get him going, but definitely felt like, in the second half they were able to get him a little more involved in some targets.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we saw it last year. He's going to be special. I mean, just all these receivers, the speed that they've got, their
Yeah.
catchability. He's going to be special. Yeah, I mean, we saw
And
it
man, do they
firsthand in
block.
the big game.
Good
Dude,
Lord.
the
On the
blocking on the
Ronnie Bell
receiver.
end around. Oh, Cornelius Johnson, just a beautiful, beautiful block to spring that touchdown. This whole wide receiver crew,
Yeah,
and that's what makes the running game so successful, along with that offensive line, is they can block on the outsides with the best team in the country.
yeah. I mean, that wide receiver group's a very well coached unit there, and you can
Yeah.
see it from the blocking. I mean, when you've got, it's just really all around really special unit. I mean, their speed, their catching ability, the blocking, all around just really really talented players.
Yeah, no question. On the other side of the football, I thought it was a pretty good defensive performance. I still we saw it at the end, second to last drive, when they really needed to stop to put the nail in the
Yeah,
coffin. The pass rushers were able to get home. Mike Morris, Ayabi Oki, they were both able to put a couple of plays together. But other than that, felt like the pass rush was pretty much non-existent for a lot of that game. Mason
yeah,
Graham had a nice play as a true freshman. Man, you love to see that. But there were some plays, third and longs and things like that, where Petrus had quite a bit of time back there. They weren't able to get home. I mean, think about the 3rd and 16, that on their first scoring drive, on Iowa's first scoring drive there in the end of the third quarter. You know, I mean, it was a weird defense. Mikey got beat a little bit on that route. It shouldn't happen against an Iowa team, but you got to be able to get home against Petrus. He's a statue back there. Pressure. You
yeah,
got to get pressure in a situation like that. Like, you think back to why Michigan was able to beat Ohio State and even hold them to 27 points last year. They were able to keep everything in front because the pass rush was able to pressure CJ Stroud. He had to make quick decisions. I mean, if that offense is going to have all day at the end of November, good luck. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? The pass rush needs to get better. I'm sure we're going to see more Oki, Mike Morris starting to figure it out, probably some more Derek Moore moving forward, but they absolutely have to get it figured out sooner rather than later, because over the last 3 games, pressure generated outside of the one, that last pretty much drive, second to last drive for Iowa in this game, the pressure wasn't really there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was kind of hard to gauge the defense in this game because that Iowa offense is really bad, like humorously bad. And I thought that it was really summed up well about how humorously bad that Iowa offense is. When they have a 4th and 2, they commit offensive pass interference and they'll throw short of the sticks and end up a yard short on
Yeah.
a diving catch. I mean, that sums it up right there. So it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, it's hard to tell against an offense like that. But I will say, I mean, there were plays like that 4th and 2. I mean, that's Iowa scores a touchdown on that drive, and that is a whole different ball
It's a
game.
whole different
Things are
ball
getting
game.
scary.
No question.
And oh yeah, dude. 20-14. Iowa got to stop on the next drive too. So, I mean, obviously things probably play out differently if they score a touchdown there, but I mean, that could have
Right.
been them getting the ball back down by 6, and that's just a nightmare scenario. But when it really mattered, on that 4th and 2, they got to stop, and on that drive, Mike Morris was a beast there at the end, dude.
Yeah, he was.
Um,
Oh my
he,
God, he
he
beat
was,
that right tackle like a drum,
dude.
man. Oof.
Yep. He was looking like Hutch out there. So
Yeah.
when they really needed those stops, they came up, they got some pressure. But yeah, I mean the pressure on the quarterback, it just needs to be much more consistent because, like you said, end of November, Stroud, much more athletic, much more capable quarterback than Petrus in Iowa. So that needs to change. But luckily, a lot of time before then. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, man. They also got to get a little bit healthier. Would love to see Nikai Hill Green back at some point
Yeah.
here because they're the linebacker core still a little bit iffy at times, particularly in coverage. That's got to change. Iowa was able to have some successful runs, surprisingly, and I'll be honest, Petrus, he surprisingly made a couple of really good throws. The one to the
He
tight
did.
end over the seam. I mean, it was
Yeah.
incredible coverage on him. I think it was Colson in coverage there. It was perfect coverage, and that was an NFL throw from
Yeah.
Petrus, which makes no sense given what we saw a majority of that
Man.
ball game. I mean, if I was an Iowa fan, it's got to be so frustrating watching that offense
Oh,
every single week.
that's
But
exactly what I was
because
thinking.
you know that they can put some drives together,
Yep.
like they were able to put a
Yeah.
couple of drives together on Michigan. I don't know, and that's the thing, right? Is that just them being competent at times throughout a game, or is there a reason for worry on that side of the ball for Michigan? You know, maybe a little bit of both, but
Yeah.
he ended up making some pretty good throws, man.
He did. He did, and but also a big part of that was like I think they converted a 3rd and 19 at one point on a nice throw cut for him because he has so much time back there.
Right.
I mean, you give any quarterback that much time, and he's probably going to make a really good throw. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, obviously, Petrus wouldn't be a Division I starting quarterback if he wasn't capable of making some good throws.
Right.
So when he gets time in the pocket, he can deliver. But at the same time, there's definitely some things that Michigan has a lot of room to improve on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Just a couple of things in coverage. I still think Mikey's figuring it out a little bit on that side, even with how good he's been. And that's another thing. DJ Turner, he's been obviously fantastic here this year. I mean, we're talking about another blowout here at Kinnick if he holds onto that ball and he takes it the other way for 6 too. Oh, looks like we may have lost Scotty for a moment here. He's lagging a little bit behind.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. I noticed that mine cut out a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't know what happened.
Yeah, so no, on
um,
that side of the football though, like I mentioned, I don't know if you heard, but I talked a little bit about DJ Turner and the dropped interception, made a perfect play on the ball. He holds on to that, he's going the other way for 6, and it's just a complete dagger and
yeah,
nail in the coffin.
yeah. I mean, some of those plays. I mean, obviously, not a receiver for a reason. Not all of them have the sure hands, but yeah, I mean, the last 2 weeks, there's really been a lot of plays where and that's the thing is that Iowa game still, like, the scores, I think they don't really show. I mean, against Maryland, it was 34-19 with about 2 minutes to go. Michigan's last touchdown in this one was about minute 20, so it's 7-20 or 27-7. So
Right.
obviously it's a pretty cruel win, but yeah, there were a lot of plays in both of those games that if Michigan makes them, it like you said, it's the dagger, puts it away. Some of the deep throws in the Maryland game, that pick, the deep throw to Roman Wilson, and in those games that aren't quite as comfortable, those are the kind of plays that turn a win into a loss, turn a win into a close nail biter down the stretch. So those are plays you got to make.
Yep, absolutely. Going to talk a little bit about the Indiana game coming up here, but first, want to let you know, Brewcast, thanks to Manscaped because it's fresh ball fall. Excuse me. Today's show brought to you by Manscaped, and That's a company to make sure your foliage isn't the only thing shedding its excess leaves here. And we've got you covered with a great promotion here. You can join 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. I got the Performance Package 4.0. It's fantastic, man. I'm going to let you know that lawnmower, it's the real deal. It's going to help you out a ton. The weed whacker for your nose and ear. If you're starting to grow some hair in the nose and the ear there, you can't hear all that well. We want to get you 20% off. And the beautiful thing is that Manscaped will ship anywhere in the world. Go to manscaped.com, 20% off and free shipping. All you have to do is use code MNB20. That's MNB20. Get that Performance Package 4.0. It's as good as it gets, and they're going to ship it to you for free. Manscaped.com, MNB20 is your promo code. So Michigan, once again, going to be the big noon kickoff here, Scotty, as they head to Iowa for another road game, second of the year, and an Iowa team that's fresh off a 2-touchdown loss to Nebraska. So, I mean, it's tough to gauge this team. Got absolutely blown out by Cincinnati, beat by 2 touchdowns against Nebraska, but they're undefeated at home here this year. 2 games I think they probably should have lost, though, Illinois and Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
Able to pull out victories in those. I just don't see anything that Iowa really does particularly well. They average like 3 yards a carry. Their quarterback, Connor Bazelak, is completing 52% of his passes, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Like this could be a big day for Michigan coming up. Cincinnati and Western Kentucky both threw for over 300 yards against this team. I mean, the one thing that they were able to do, though, in the last 2 games on the road is stop the run, but gave up 6 yards of carry to Western Kentucky, 4 to Illinois. It's a bit of a tough year for Tom Allen and the Hoosiers here this year, feels like.
Yeah, I think that maybe some people were thinking Indiana was a little bit better this year. Obviously, a year ago they went 2-10, 0-9 in Big Ten play, and I think this is a pretty similar team. Like you said, shouldn't have really beaten Illinois. I think there was I don't remember exactly what happened. I remember us texting about it because we had bets on it. I think there was a touchdown that Illinois had.
Yeah, I had Illinois in that game, man, and
Yeah.
I could not believe it. There was was it a touchdown? Yeah, I think it was a touchdown taken away from Illinois, and it was just horrible.
Yeah, it was a clear touchdown. I had Indiana, so I was happy about it, but they shouldn't have won the game. They were very lucky to get to 3-0 in the first place. So they beat their win total from a year ago very fast. But this is not a good football team. And yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity for Michigan to really get the passing game ready for Penn State, like we talked about earlier. They won't be able to stop it. But obviously got to take every team seriously. Michigan's had tricky games against Indiana in the past. It's usually right before Ohio State. But I mean, Indiana likes to.
But it is right before a big game here this year with Penn State coming to town the next week.
Right, and going on the road in Big Ten is never easy. So you never know. Weirder things have happened. But yeah, I mean, like I said, Indiana shouldn't even. I think they should really are more like a 1-4 team. So don't look too much into the 3-2 for that. But yeah, I mean. This one should not be a test, and if it is, it's a little concerning.
And a little bummed out here, kind of just shifting gears because there isn't a whole lot we're going to be able to say on this game.
Right.
It was announced today, speaking of Big Noon Kickoff, Michigan, just getting followed around by Big Noon Kickoff in Fox here. Next week, Penn State game, it's going to be the Maze Out, and it's going to be at noon. And I know people are pretty bummed about this because they wanted it to be a night game, and it all but assures that Michigan State is going to be the night game here this year when they come Halloween weekend to Ann Arbor. What are your thoughts on that Penn State and them still doing the Maze Out for a noon kick?
I hate all of it for a few reasons. First off, I'm going to the Penn State game. I would really wanted it to be a night game because the Maze Out deserves a night game. The night game, Maze Out against Washington last year, that game was the best Michigan game I've ever been to until I went to the Ohio State game last year. And then that was the best Michigan game I've ever been to. But that environment in the Maze Out against Washington was awesome. So I really hate this call, especially because the one Mays out, or the one night game Michigan's done against Michigan State was 2017, and Michigan State won that game. They were unranked. Michigan was number 7. That sucked. And also, I'm going to be in Europe for the Michigan State game. I'm just really upset about this because offered free tickets today, can't go, and now the game's going to be in the middle of the night for me. So I don't even know what I'm going to do. So all of this for me just very upsetting.
Yeah, I don't like it either. Like you said, if you're going to do something like a maze out, you got to coordinate this a little better, you know. And I understand why they're doing it because, from my understanding, Michigan's going to wear the all maze because they weren't able to, or Penn State didn't allow them to do it last year. But yeah, make this one the night game, man. You know, because the aesthetic of the Washington game was absolutely amazing, but also I'm a little bit worried. Like last year when they did the maze out, it was all blue uniforms that Michigan wore for that game because it contrasted so well with the crowd that's all
Right.
maize. I'm a little bit worried about all maize jerseys with a maze out crowd. Like I know it's been done
I was
and,
thinking
and
that
things
too.
like that, but I don't know. It seems like it's almost a disadvantage.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too because it really does look like they're going to do the maze. And first of all, the all blue uniforms with the maze out last year looked awesome. And yeah, I think that really is a big part of it has to be Penn State not letting Michigan wear the maze
Yeah,
last year, which was
they're
weird.
petty and they want to absolutely blow
Yeah,
them out wearing those maize unis, man.
yeah, which would be great. I really hope that that happens. But yeah, I mean, you got to think that would be a little bit challenging for the quarterback to see his players downfield. But um, yeah, and I mean, it's just the maze just shines brighter when it's nighttime outside, and it doesn't look as cool during the day. It just doesn't.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the students aren't as drunk, the fans aren't as rowdy. Like it's the maze out has to be a night game. It really does.
Yeah, unfortunately not going to be here this year, but not looking too far ahead. Indiana is the game here this week. Hopefully the passing game can have some success. Let JJ fling it a little bit, maybe find some chemistry and let this passing offense get into some rhythm.
Yeah, definitely. Not looking ahead, but I'm not gonna lie, I just did lie looking ahead. I'm very excited for the Penn State game. And they gotta get everything tuned up before then. If Michigan gets upset this week, it's on me for that jinx right there. But yeah, I mean, I can't wait for that game, and this is the time where everything gets settled. I mean, top 10 showdown in the Big House. It doesn't get bigger than that.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get it there and hopefully both teams win so we can see that undefeated matchup at the Big House in a
Yeah.
couple of weeks. Scotty, where can we find you on social media, my man?
You guys can give me a follow on Twitter at Scotty White _. It's SCOTTY. All the podcasts, all the articles for football will be posted there. So give me a follow on Twitter.
You can find me on Twitter at Luke Ghiardi, LUKEGHIARDI. Make sure to follow the Maize and Brew Twitter page as well. Don't forget, we're going live on Monday nights. Appreciate everyone that was hanging out here and joining the conversation in the comments. Make sure to subscribe to the Maize and Brew YouTube page. Drop that like as well. We love to hear from you guys. And thanks for joining the conversation. And make sure to subscribe, rate, leave a review for our podcast wherever you get your shows. For my partner, Scotty White, I'm Luke Ghiardi. We'll see you next week on Brewcast.